Okay, welcome everyone to the Access Innovation webinar on corporate innovation. My name is Ed Frank, and I'm the CEO of Access Innovation, broadcasting you live from my basement here in Tel Aviv. First, I'd like to welcome our distinguished panel of guests. We have innovation executives from leading multinationals from 4 different countries. Thank you for joining us, as well as our participants. We have over 400 registered participants from 40 countries. So welcome all of you during this very difficult time. For those of you who aren't familiar with Access Innovation, we're a global corporate advisory firm. We work with leading multinationals and investors to help find the best technology startups around the world. And we've worked with over a dozen multinationals. Over the past 10 years, we've done actually over 100 events in 20 countries, and our events are pretty much a person-to-person situation. With the world changing, we've changed as well, and we're glad to keep you here all together on this Zoom webinar as a way of trying to keep innovation moving between startups and corporations. Before we begin, I'd first like to thank our sponsors, Ibex Investors, a $500 million US fund that invests in technology startups in Israel as well as globally. And thank you, Adam, for sponsoring us today. I'd like to turn the table over to Jason Weiss, COO of Access Innovation, who'll be moderating our panel. Thank you for joining us today and enjoy the webinar.
Thanks, Ed. It's great to be here and virtual with everyone. Welcome to the second webinar in our series, Access Webinars, covering the most critical topics facing startup entrepreneurs today. This webinar is focused on corporations and how startups can work together with corporate partners in today's very challenging and changing environment. At Access, we have years of experience working with early stage startups and multinational corporations, and are very excited to bring together a fantastic panel to share their insights and advice for startup founders. We understand everyone's time is extremely valuable, and there are a lot of webinars happening these days too, and we're grateful you've decided to spend this time together with us. We put a lot of effort and resources to make this a really productive, insightful, valuable, and enjoyable time. And we're going to keep things moving very fast with a lot of very interesting things. The format of this webinar for the next 1 hour, we'll have a virtual roundtable for the next 30 minutes or so. Then we'll have time for Q&A. We really encourage everyone to ask questions. How can you do that? In your Zoom application or in your browser, there is a Q&A button. Use that and send us a question. Please add your name, company, where you're from. We'll do our best to get to everyone's questions. We also have some exciting polls, which will be put up on screen every 10 to 15 minutes. Love to get your answers to those when they come up to keep things engaged. Now, we also welcome everyone to introduce themselves. All our attendees, feel free to send in the chat who you are and where you're from and what you're looking to get out of this webinar. Now, let's begin by allowing our panelists to introduce themselves and also to add an anecdote about how you personally are managing work and life being at home. So let's start off with Scott. How about you take it away?
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, hi, Scott Lyons. So I'm from Ford. I basically am responsible for engaging with a lot of startups and generally looking for new opportunities that we actually want to work with here in Europe, but also potentially in the US. Been working with Access actually now for a number of years, and we've been working together on our Make It Drivable program. And so if you think about it, my responsibility is kind of everything that is not physical that's in the vehicle. So imagine experiences or content or new services. Obviously, as connected cars continue to expand and roll out in the world, these kind of services are actually becoming increasingly more important. In terms of how I'm handling working from home, some days are good, some days are bad. I happen to live in Berlin, so we're not entirely locked down here, so I'm able to kind of experience a bit of the lovely sunny weather, but I have to say this is a very, very challenging time. My preference, of course, is to spend time traveling around, meeting people face to face and jumping from plane to plane. So with that being said, Jason, I'll throw it back to you.
Okay, so let's go around. Let's say Eilat, then Vera, then Dave, then Dennis.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eilat. Thank you, Jason and Ed, for inviting me to this great webinar. Hello from Israel, everyone. We are under a lockdown here, but as you can see, still traveling the world via Zoom, which is great. I'm responsible for everything non-physical, as Scott said, in Kimberly-Clark as well, heading the digital innovation. We're working with startups from all around the world to understand what's the future of essentials for better life for everyone, for each and every one of us. We are a global company, and we're currently experiencing an overwhelming demand from everybody who's trying to fight the coronavirus, and we're doing so very fiercely throughout the world. We are collaborating with startups and myriad of spaces. And personally, I've been acting, I want to say something like 12 years over in open innovation, before that in telecommunications, and now in CPG. And it's always exciting to see how these times are creating new opportunities for everyone. As far as the anecdote for this time, so no pajamas for me. I really dress up.
Great, thank you, Eilat. Vera.
Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here. I'm representing the telecommunication sector. I'm working as innovation manager in the Hutchison Dry Austria. This is one of the 3 largest telecommunication companies in Austria. We are the part of the Hutchison group, with other businesses like ports and related services, retail, infrastructure, etc. We have other telco companies in UK, Ireland, Denmark, Italy, and etc. And we have approximately 4 million customers. We in the innovation department are looking for the cooperations with the startups in data analytics, fintech, insurtech, e-health, energy services. And of course, we are looking for other related innovations or innovation solutions related to the core business of the telecommunication sector. So this is the short intro from my side. Thank you.
Okay. Dave, and then Dennis.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Jason, for the invitation. First of all, really appreciate it. Well, basically, I have been in IT for the last 14 years as a startup, actually creating products and amazing products in different countries. Now, I'm working for MTS, the biggest telecom operator in Russia. We're part of the strategic block of the company. So we have been working for the last couple of years with not only with the startups, but with companies at all. We have actually 4 main verticals inside our startup hub. So basically, we have number 1, we have the corporate accelerator. Number 2, we have the 5G incubator. Number 3, a CVC fund, and number 4, we have a special program to run pilots in the easiest way, let's say. About the verticals, actually they are really different. So from AI, IoT, fintech, cloud, esports, and other 25 different verticals. So about the stages, so it depends of course on the product or vertical, but mostly all of them are from seed round and A round, more or less. So yeah, basically, well, my responsibilities actually, I'm focused on scouting and partnerships. So actually my main job is actually to attract these amazing companies to MTS and actually start collaborating. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, so hello everybody, my name is Denis Levchenko. Hello. I'm working at X5 Retail Group. X5 Retail Group is a grocery retailer in Russia. So we work only in Russia now, but the company is very big. We manage more than 15,000 stores. We have our own logistics infrastructure, 4,000 trucks, 41 distribution center. We have 70 million customers and 40 million are our loyal customers. So I'm responsible for the scouting of innovation startups in my role at X5. I'm working at X5 more than 2 years, and since that time, we have more than 1,000 startups in our innovation funnel. We did more than 150 pilots, and 20 out of them were implemented in our business. So we are mainly interested in looking for solutions for improving our operation efficiency, like efficiency in store operations, logistics processes, transportation processes. And we are also interested in solution for the customer journey improvement, for the customer experience and stuff like that. So I'm working with open innovations for more than 10 years. And as I said, 2 years in X5 Retail Group. And thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Okay, thank you everyone. So again, to all our guests who've joined us, and I see a lot more people are coming on, welcome. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. And also feel free to ask any questions not in the chat, in the Q&A section. We'll do our best to get to them in the end. Now we're gonna show up a quick poll, which will pop up on your screen to answer that. And in the meantime, let's get this started. So first question I wanna ask everyone, and I think this is one of the most important questions that's on everyone's mind, which is how has corporate innovation been affected because of the crisis? And how has it affected you and the work that you do? And let's hand this over to Eilat. Why don't you start, and then everyone else feel free to chime in after that.
Sure. So I can kind of divide it into two. So as I said before, for us at the CPG sector, it has been quite a hectic time with a lot of demand coming up for everyone. So from one end, we had to focus our efforts and then maybe deprioritize some of the things that we have been working on. But on the other hand, we have been seeing a lot of new opportunities. And therefore, I can say that mainly it's around reprioritization. What does innovation mean for a company at this time of happening? And also trying to focus and do very quick turnarounds into creating new things for our consumers.
So Jason, I can comment as well. I guess from a Ford perspective, obviously there's been a lot of news recently about obviously us getting involved in making ventilators and face masks and other types of things. And obviously those are great opportunities to use obviously the assets that we have in our factories, obviously for a good cause, which obviously this is one of those. I think from a partnering perspective, and obviously from a, I guess, looking at what we want to do, I agree that with Eilat that obviously there is a clear prioritization in terms of looking at, what were we doing before, and looking at things now with a completely different lens. I mean, the world that existed 6 or 8 weeks ago does not exist anymore, and frankly, I'm not sure when it will exist like that anymore. And obviously, looking at it from where do you put your resources and what types of things do you want to focus on? One of the areas that we've been really looking at, and I've really discovered some really interesting startups that have approached us in this space, is, on this kind of lend a hand initiative that we have in some markets around the world, where it's kind of looking at how do we deliver services and opportunities for our customers that are going to be really pinched. And this isn't just about giving them payment holidays, which obviously are extremely important, of course, but also other types of services that can really help them. So in a way, I like what Emmanuel Macron said, which was, we are at war with COVID-19. We absolutely are. And I think, the things that historically companies or corporations haven't gotten involved with, whether it be mental health or other types of initiatives, I think we're kind of moving away from that now to say, actually, we should get involved in these things. and we should basically pull together in a war setting, because if you think about it, I wasn't alive, of course, during World War II, but I can only imagine that major corporations and companies really pulled together to actually deliver and to do things that we kind of would find very foreign today. And I think that mindset is changing, and I know that I'm pushing a lot of different initiatives with some startups that we're working with now to kind of accelerate in very short timescales to get out to market things that would normally take 6 months, maybe a year or 18 months, but doing it in just a couple of weeks.
Fantastic, really interesting. Vera, Dave, or Dennis, if you'd like to add something?
Yes, actually, Dave here. Well, actually, as everybody mentioned before, I think that prioritization right now is really important. We have been actually working for the last maybe couple of months or maybe 3 months actually. We had passed everything online. So we have been working on online pre-acceleration programs actually. And other kind of actually we just launched we had the demo day last Friday. It was the first one in Russia. So we have been working somehow, changing like our mindset somehow. But I think one of the most important thing is how to figure out that we're actually creating new verticals, and these new verticals are actually giving us a new perspective for creating new products. One important thing to add, for example, in our case, we have been building different products for the last maybe, I don't know, five or more years, of course. And some of those verticals for now we're giving for free. So we have a special, for example, SmartMed is our, let's say, like free online urgent care consultation. So everybody can actually have free care consultations for free. I'm so sorry. From other side, we have been like, we're working in the online side, also creating, for example, with the Smart University. So e-health and e-learning is actually increasing a lot for the maybe couple of weeks actually. So I think that for now on, everything will be changed somehow in order to work mostly online. So I think it's a big challenge, and we're working on that right now. So hopefully we can help not only our subscribers, but actually we're trying to help all the citizens in Russia, please. So yeah.
Thank you.
I would like to give some perspective from the telcos view. I would say that we should differentiate between the short-term and long-term perspective. If we talk about the short-term perspective, then of course this is a challenge. This is the challenge for everyone and for telco too. We are the part of the critical infrastructure of in each country. And our primary responsibility is to serve the citizens of the state in order to deliver them the top quality of the operations. And at the same time, along this responsibility, we are facing the challenges in the complete disruption, for example, in our supply chain, in the supply of our equipment from Asia, etc. Then the volume of data transmission, not only mobile streaming, etc., increased till 100% and more. And the last but not the least, the investments in 5G infrastructure and the investments in our network, they have to be postponed during this crisis, during this challenge. So in the short-term perspective, it means the decrease in revenues for the telco operators. But in the long-term perspective, the outcome I see still very positive, since the mobile office, home office is the new reality today. As everyone already said, we are in the new reality now. The world that existed yesterday doesn't exist anymore, and mobile offices will be and is already widely accepted. We see that it works. Okay, it's changing, but it works. And the telco operators, the telecommunication companies, they have this first-hand experience with the mobile working, both with the consumers and businesses. And from this first-hand experience will result new use cases and subsequently new innovations around the core business, around the topics like AI, machine learning, 5G. It will come. Yes, it's postponed now, but it will come a little bit later, and we will still be on race. So we will still deliver the best experience. But at the same time, outside core business too, and in new business areas like I mentioned in my intro, like fintech, e-health, and more.
Thank
so
you.
These are my 5 cents, besides, of course, what Eilat already said about the pajamas. So don't stay 7 days a week in your pajamas. I don't recommend this.
Dennis, would you like to add anything?
Yes, sure. So some words from retail. Well, actually, I think you understand that the impact on grocery retail is not so heavy like for other industries, for many other industries, because we're also the part of the critical infrastructure, and people will buy products anyway at any crisis. But what we can see now, and we also reprioritize our activities, that now a lot of people do not want to go to the store, and they want to buy online. Actually, well, it was not the big part of the business in grocery always. It was in clothes and electronics, but now we can see this trend, and we face this challenge, and this push us to develop very fast in terms of online delivery in grocery. So you have to have fridges, couriers, you have to have the fast delivery. And I can see that we evolve very fast at X5 these days. So we launched our online Peterочка store. So before that, we have 2 cities for delivery. Now we deliver in many cities in Russia. And we deliver from all our retail chains, not only from supermarkets, but now we deliver from convenience stores. And I think that this will not stop after the end of the crisis, after the end of COVID. So the people's buying behavior changes, and I think that we will see much more online deliveries when this will end. So for sure, this is the big challenge, but this enforces us to change faster.
Thank you. Thank you. So we just finished our first poll, and people said they think actually the telco sector will be the strongest, but all the sectors, I think, too. Now we just put our second poll up. When do you anticipate having your next business trip? International one, which is quite an interesting question. We'll show those results very soon. Now to go on to the next question we have. If a startup wants to work together with you today, or you can also take this to any large corporation in your perspective, is anything different? Is the process going to be longer? Are the priorities going to be different? And what do you recommend to a startup who wants to work with you? And I'll throw this question first to Dave, if you can answer. You mentioned you're moving everything virtual. So if you could share some insights, and then obviously to the rest of our panelists to follow up.
Yes, thank you. Actually, yes, as I mentioned before, somehow before the World Mobile Congress was canceled, we started working online since that time. So actually, the one of our best channels to attract companies or startups for 20 years is actually these offline challenges, you know, like calls. But actually, after they canceled the World Mobile Congress, everything went online. So we have been working with Israel really closely, with some embassies, for example, with the Israel embassy in Moscow, with the Spanish embassy also. So we had running these calls that is supposed to be offline. We just run everything online. For now on, and because we have a special program to enter on this open innovation, let's say a challenge or vertical. So we have a special space for everybody actually. And because the situation right now, we're trying to move more faster than the other ways that we have. So we have anyway the corporate accelerator that we have only like 2 batches per year. The 5G incubator has also two different batches. But in our case right now, and because we're actually focusing on a spatial, let's say products or verticals, so we're trying to move more faster. So in some cases, for example, to run a pilot is between from 2 to 6 months. So we're trying to get engaged quickly with the startup in order to run actually the pilot maybe in 3 or 4 weeks. So all the inside processes, like in-house processes, have been changing a lot. So we have to speed the, let's say, like the communication, the processes inside with other departments or teams. So it's really challenging, but hopefully, I think like soon we're gonna have a huge changes, not only in the strategic block we have in the startup app, but I think in all the company. So yeah, so I think we'll be actually soon we're gonna find a lot of new verticals now working on. So let's see how's it gonna be.
Thank you, Dave. I'll open it up.
I'll take it. I just wanted to add from a perspective that I think that if startups want to approach us these days, I think they'll if they want to be successful, they might as well tie their value proposition into what everyone is going under this time. So anytime, anything that could help either do something better for people or help companies such as ours or telcos or so forth create more value, whether through current business, meaning produce better, do things that are more efficient, etc., or create a new thing that will help people at this time of day. So if you could tie it into the value proposition into something that is relevant to this time, I think that it will expedite things tremendously.
Very good insights. Thank you.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. Listen, now is a very challenging time for, I think, the business community as a whole, right? Depending upon what sector you're in, your company or the corporation itself may be fighting for survival, right? Obviously reading the Financial Times or the Economist or seeing what's coming from McKinsey or whoever could be pretty daunting reading. And so, really it's completely now, I think, a different focus around what is innovation and what type of companies and partnerships make sense. I think in the past, innovation, depending upon the company that you're talking to, has always been, this is nice to have, but is not a critical thing. And there have always been people that really embrace that. And obviously working with Access now for a couple of years, we've been trying to kind of fine tune, some of the companies that come through the joint events that we put together around Europe. And where do we actually go with these companies? And so I think in a way, this is kind of a bit of a, as I said before, a different lens as to what makes sense for us as a business now, and in a way kind of getting rid of some of the froth and actually really focusing on some of the core opportunities. So I'll give you an example, because I think these things are always worthwhile with examples, is, we make vehicles, obviously. We make commercial vehicles, we make passenger vehicles. Are there ways that we can use our vehicles and the technology and the infrastructure that we have to be able to deliver something that's currently not in the market, that could perhaps help deliver faster testing, or do something that is specific to some of the issues that we have today? Unfortunately, I think COVID is obviously here for quite some time. It's going to shift obviously from testing whether you have COVID to whether you have the antibodies. And so there's going to be a complete shift, I think, of how we deal with this moving forward. And so what we're looking for now are actually partnerships and relationships with companies that historically would not even come close to being important for us and being on our radar. And so therefore, I think the scope is completely opened up to what we're looking for. And I think that's interesting and really exciting on one hand, but also, you've got to kind of somehow interact with these companies. And I think obviously, having these Zoom, webinars are great, but of course we're missing the Mobile World Congresses. We're missing the physical interaction with people. And that really presents a huge challenge, because I think navigating the Kimberly Clarks, the Fords of this world are very, very difficult, because how do you find the right person to actually engage with? That's difficult in normal times, but even more difficult now.
Very true. Very true. Very interesting. Okay. Any other insights, or should we move on to the next poll?
Well, I can say that from retail perspective, so X5 Retail Group, we are working with innovations in the same pace, so maybe even harder. So what can I say to startups who are willing to work with corporations now? First of all, I think that all of us are feeling the pressure on the budgets for innovations in any business. So my advice is to understand the business efficiency that the startup, the solution will bring to the business. So if you are working with operational costs, this will be, I think, the best perspective nowadays, because now many companies are looking for solutions to decrease operational costs. And for example, in terms of stores, for example, we prioritize, we shift our focus to the solutions for disinfection, for sanitizing, for solutions for the staff and for the customers. So we are looking for solutions that make customers feel safety in our stores. And we are also facing so-called touchless shopping experience, because now this is really needed thing. So when the customer comes into the store and he wants to feel safe in the store, so it's better to provide the experience when the customer should not touch anything. And he will not communicate with the staff, with the cash register, and the things like Amazon Go or like seamless stores is, I think that it is a very right thing to do these days, and we are doing this as well.
From the telco perspective, if I may add, I would say that again, as a part of the critical infrastructure, our primary task is to deliver the top operations for the country. So regarding the innovations, we have to reevaluate each project now. And it always depends on the startups, on the solution and on the value proposition and on its relevance. I can give you an example. We have approximately 2 weeks ago, we launched the cooperation with the startup Doctors Recommends by Doctors, together with the insurance company Generali. This is the startup that offers the video call with your family doctor, and you can get the you are getting actually the distance consultation findings and prescription via phone call, via video call, sorry. Originally, that launch was planned not earlier than summer, and then as our answer, as our measure against the COVID-19, we decided to launch it now, because now it's the point. So it's like the example how it can go faster if the relevance is here. But on the other side, we are still having our core business, and if the relevance is not here, it can take longer, or it cannot be launched at all. It's all about the relevance now, and my advice to the startups will be, of course, be flexible in this time, deliver in these extraordinary circumstances, but still look at the relevance. I mean, if in Ford you say you are opening up to the most possible scope, we are on the other side, we have our primary task, and this is the task that is important for the whole country. So we are still have priorities, what was already said by all speakers, and I definitely support this. So look, my advice to the startups will be, if you work with the telcos, look at the relevance for the innovation departments in the specific telcos, because and you have to bear in mind that our task is now, due to this huge increase in the data transmission, to make the mobile working top, and to make it possible, to make new reality possible. So it's from my side.
Thank you, Vera. Thank you, everyone. So we moved on to our next poll. Everyone just sit up there and take a quick second to answer if you haven't already. And the last one, we said, when do you think things will get back to normal? You will start flying again. About half of everyone said September until December, not before then. And many people even thought till later. So we'll wait and see. Now, we've been receiving so many great questions. I want to jump right in with a few of the questions we received. One of them is from Imre Hild, who asked, what do you think will be the impact on M&A activities regarding large corporations acquiring startups and scale-ups? And I'll add to that, if there is an interest, you think, in acqui-hires, particularly at this point as well. And whoever would like to answer that, go right ahead.
I think there will inevitably be some impact on that, right? I mean, if you think about it, there is a serious cash flow focus at the moment. Obviously with lots of corporations drawing down on billions of dollars or euros worth of their credit lines. And so on one hand, you can look at, this is a great deal to go out and pick up a company in distressed times, of course. But then naturally, I think there is a huge focus at the moment on the core business, and on making sure that you can actually get out on the other end. That's not to say, though, that I haven't been receiving in my inbox many different emails from companies saying we're going through Series C fundraising and et cetera, and they're very relevant for our business. And it's not to say that we're not looking at those things, but I think inevitably there is a stricter view now on whether we actually want to spend money as opposed to kind of hoarding it in our bank to basically ride out the downturn that's actually happening at the moment. And I think that's going to be sector by sector, right? So there are different sectors that are impacted in more significant ways than others. And I think that this is a really opportune time to go out and look at what type of companies are available in the M&A space. I also think as well, I've seen many topics on this, is that there are a lot of different people out there that are now looking for jobs potentially, that are actually extremely talented people that normally in normal situations, of which this is not one of those, and I hope we never go through it again in our lifetime, are available. And so I think this is an opportunity, right? It just depends on whether you have the resources and the mindset to look beyond your existing dark moment that we're all in at this time. So, yeah.
Very true.
The sun is coming.
Yes. I just wanted to add something, actually. Sorry, please, go on.
Go on. I'll speak after.
Thank you. Well, actually, yes, I think that as every crisis has, I don't know, like in the history can show us, it's an opportunity actually. And this opportunity, I mean, is actually to focus on spatial verticals, for example. So we just can, I mean, we're just seeing right now the growth of the e-health or e-learning. So I think that those corporate fans actually will focus on that, on those verticals. Well, they have their own roadmap. We have our own roadmap, and including other, let's say, verticals from our business units. But anyway, I think that we will see the rise of new opportunities around in the community, let's say. But again, I think that, as I mentioned before, Jason, yeah, it will depend also on the sectors and also what's happening right now in the market. So obviously, we're just in the, let's say, like in the half of the cycle. So I think that anyway, we will need to wait for other maybe couple of months. So we will actually feel more what is happening and what are the results of this coronavirus problem. But yeah.
Thank you.
I would say maybe only one sentence. Yes, each crisis is an opportunity, and it will bring the opportunity for the startups, but only for them, for those of them who will survive this crisis. Because if you say a couple of months, it will take a couple of months longer. For startups, it means it's the question of the survival, a couple of months. It's the question of the burn rate, etc. So it's just my 5 cents. So of course, the market has the potential to get healthier with the more relevant value propositions from the side of the startups, but for again, for those of them who will survive. And it's of course the one of the things that, for example, we in Austria are expecting from our government. Our government is doing the great job, has provided the 38 billion help package to the business. And generally what the startup scene, the startup ecosystem is expecting, that there will be the like I think in France, the separate package of support for the startups, and then it will open new opportunities also in the M&A sector. But now it's still challenging, and we couldn't say that it will be the question of survival for a lot of the startups.
Eilat, you want to add some?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the question of survival is not just for the small ones. I think that the big ones are also, look at what's happening in the with the airlines these days. I don't think maybe some of them will. I mean, like most of them probably will survive, but they'll have to change a lot of things as well. I think that the opportunity that will be for M&As will be for the ones that for the sectors and for the companies that are seeing now growth. For instance, the retailers and their need to create an immediate online. Suddenly, it goes from the 5%. It used to be 5 to 95, and now it's beginning huge. So the M&A opportunity is going to be in these sectors where they actually need to completely change their business model. It's an evident opportunity to buy an online startup that knows how to do whatever they need to do online, etc. So I think that there will be opportunities for those who are changing their business model, and for those who are seizing the opportunities to try and change their business into the new era, the new world that we will go into.
Yeah, Jason, wasn't there a quote from, I think it was Barack Obama's chief of staff that said, never let a good crisis go to waste. So I think it's true, unfortunately. I mean, I would prefer if we weren't in this crisis, but if we can somehow, get something from it positive, then I think we should try and do that as much as possible.
I like that's a lot of what we're trying to understand, really, where are the opportunities that are coming up for the corporations, but also for the startups, and where to refocus that energy. I think a lot of what we're hearing from all of you is that there is a reshuffling of priorities, and there are opportunities, And it's just a matter of helping everyone kind of refocus on those priorities, not go to the old things that maybe aren't relevant anymore, which is all, very valuable stuff. So I think we're gonna share these results, then we're gonna have another poll, then 1 or 2 more questions. I know, Dennis, you have to go in a few minutes. So after this next question, we'll start it off with you. So let's do this until the next poll comes up. So another question from Alberto Levi wanted to ask actually about entrepreneurship. So are there any new strategies that are coming out at this time for entrepreneurship for within your own companies, how you look at innovation? And what do you guys think of this topic? Do you think, we're talking a lot about open innovation with startups, but what do you think, even within your own companies, is there going to be more work about entrepreneurship? And our next poll is up, and it's a good one. So everyone answer it.
Okay, so shall I start?
Yes, please,
Okay.
Dennis.
So actually, this is the thing that we are thinking about this year. We are going to launch an entrepreneurship program at X5. Well, actually, we started with open innovation because the retail is such an industry where you will not find a lot of programmers, developers, or engineers. That's why, for the quick start, we selected open innovations approach. But now we can see that a lot of young guys join X5, and so we have a lot of people from big data team, IT teams, and we understand that internal people understand the pains of the business much more better than startups on the market. So that's why we decided to launch an entrepreneurship program. We are not sure if it will be successful or not, but anyway, we will launch it for sure in order to test this kind of approach to develop innovations. So let's see at the end of the year how it works.
Great. Anyone else?
Yes, in our case, for example, in the case of MTS, we actually have been working for the last maybe couple of years or year and a half actually in 2 different programs. It's called, like, let's say, internal acceleration program for MTS employees. And of course, it's a challenge, but actually, in my opinion, is one of the best way to drive innovation into the company. And one of the cool things, let's say, that we're doing right now is actually to somehow mix the experience that the employees of the corporate has right now, what they have, what they know, and also trying to bring people from outside. So now our programs are actually focused not only to help or to create new products or vehicles with employees itself, but also we're inviting other people to come over. So now the teams that actually are collecting for this program, internal programs, are actually not only focused on, again, on the employees of MTS or bringing experience from outside. So it's more like, like a mix of 2 different realities that we have right now. So from one side, the corporate acceleration, let's say, and from the other, the entrepreneurial and the startup, let's say, life. So I think will be actually this year, at least, will be actually, a big challenge to all of us, taking into account the situation that we're having right now, but also the experience that we have been working on this side from some period of time. So I hopefully we're gonna have huge results really soon. So hopefully next time, in the next webinar, we can talk more about what is happening inside MTS.
Jason, so I think this is a very interesting topic, and if you imagine that you're a young graduate that joins a big multinational corporation as your first job, this situation that we're in now actually presents a huge opportunity, because this fresh insight that is really coming from a lot of our younger employees and people that work with our company around the world. There is now specific funnels that they're able to guide some of those ideas, and we're able to actually now reallocate resources and reallocate different groups and individuals from different teams that are actually doing something completely different than what they were hired for. And I think in one respect, that's a great way of taking advantage of your existing talent pool, because I completely agree with what David said, which is, you know, there's simply just lots of different ways of going about doing this. And I think ultimately, you know, tapping up and tapping into a resource that really understands a little bit about your business, depending upon how long they've been in the company, but also having that external insight and that fresh approach is one that I hope will continue out of this crisis as well, because we're all obviously operating in a different way than we normally do right now. And I hope that we can take some of this fresh approach, quickness to market, open-mindedness to new ideas, and listening to people and cutting down a lot of the middle management barriers where people can just simply immediately go to a senior executive and say, hey, I've got this great idea. That's exactly what we need. And I think, and I hope that corporations, which frankly are, have been very challenged in the last number of years, if you think about it, right? Companies that have been around, like for example, Ford or others that have been around for over 100 years, have to completely readapt and reinvent, you know, more so than some of the younger companies that have been around for 20 or 30, like Google, Microsoft, or something like that. And therefore, I think this situation does present a huge opportunity for people that are looking at bringing new ideas and bringing them quickly to, you know, senior people to hopefully act upon those and move on.
Fantastic, thank you.
Maybe from my perspective or from the telco perspective, the point is that by some corporation that was an understanding that before the crisis, maybe it was the understanding that it should be done something in the field of innovations, but the measures or the initiatives were initial, and now the decision definitely to do something is specific, and it will result in the strong programs or strong propositions. But from the telco perspective, what I'm trying to say, this understanding was already here, and the startups, corporations, and innovative solutions, the development of them, it was already here, because as telco, we have to move fast, and we have to offer to our customers the value-added services, the answers to their problems. Now we have, as I said already, another challenge that is connected to the delivery of our core business tasks. But generally in the telco business, that is moving fast, saying again, this understanding was already here. The programs or the initiatives are here, and I think for the startups it would be right, or it would be relevant if the match is here with the fields to address the telco worldwide.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to one more question. And this is from a cybersecurity entrepreneur. Ram, working remotely is a huge challenge in regards to cybersecurity and efficiency. Are you investing or at all concerned, worried? And do you have a plan to invest in cyber protection for your employees and companies? And how do you look at this whole issue of cyber, as we're doing so much more remotely?
I can, you know, take a quick shot at that. We've been investing dramatically in cybersecurity for any type of remote work for the last 2 years, because we, as I said, we're a global company. We have a lot of people that are anyhow working remotely. So for us, it wasn't a big surprise this time, but now all of us are working remotely, and we have constant care for that and constant investments made from our cybersecurity team. So I think this is one thing that is certainly about to grow and is growing as we speak all the time. So I see investments, by the way, if we're looking at something that will probably be stronger after this one, it's probably going to be also cybersecurity, remote, anything that has to do with endpoint security and cloud and all of that, application security is gonna probably boom. We're on a platform that has had some security issues, right? So
Yeah, hopefully it's much better now.
yes.
We hope.
Good. Any other comments?
Yeah, I mean,
Dave?
Jason, the answer to this question is very simple, right? Naturally, yes. I mean, I don't think anyone in their right mind would say no. And I think our friends in Beersheba are probably dialing up the phone right now to sell us something. But yes, of course, cybersecurity is important. Obviously, from an automotive perspective, it's very important. And I think it's this area and this particular topic will never not be important, right? It's obviously always going to be trying to keep up with the next issue that may arise. So but the situation that we're in, for example, for Ford, we have 120,000 plus employees working from home around the world. That's a lot of people. And you think about, how do you manage all of that? How do you manage, obviously opening up to make sure that people can store things securely, getting access to things that normally, that normally would be kept in very secure locations. So this does present some really interesting challenges for IT departments in terms of what is confidential, what does and what cannot leave a facility, right? That in itself is an interesting topic for another day.
Definitely, thank you. Okay, so look guys, it's 5 o'clock. We are going to wrap up our webinar. I want to first thank all of our panelists. Thank you, Eilat, Scott, Dave, Vera, and also Dennis, who had to leave early. If you had a chance to look at our poll, the last question, what else are you doing in this webinar? About half of you are doing emails and other work, and about a quarter of you are doing nothing. So a big shout out to those of you who are doing nothing. And just 7 people don't want to share, it's confidential. So we won't ask about that. And a big thank you to our sponsor for Ibex Investors for supporting us in all our work and through this webinar, to the Access Innovation team, to Riley, who helps organize and run this on the technical side, to Lena for design, Justine and Dorina for the marketing and outreach, and of course Ed for putting all of this together. And I think we all do need to say a big happy birthday to Ed as well. It's his birthday.
Oh,
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
Oh, happy
Congrats.
birthday, Ed.
And there we are, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to have our next webinar coming up very soon next week. We have Alan Patrikoff, who is a legendary investor from New York, was an early investor in Apple. He's the founder of Apex Partners, one of the largest private equity firms in the entire world. Also founder of Greycroft and a big venture capitalist. He's been through about 40 years of investment experience. And it's a very, very exciting time that we have him on, a big honor. So that's going to be our next one. We have 2 more coming up. So stay tuned from us for more information about the next webinar. This, we will also have a recording. It will go up on YouTube tomorrow, as well as a blog summarizing all of this. And I think that's it. Everyone, stay safe, stay positive. The most important thing I believe throughout all this is the mindset. Really, it's difficult, but keep a positive mindset. We are going to get through this together however we can. So thank you again to the team, to our panelists, and everyone for joining us. And have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you from my side. I think that you guys are, as always, are doing a fantastic job, and I literally miss your mindset and the Tel Aviv. So I hope to see you soon, to welcome you in Vienna, and really stay healthy, stay safe, and miss you, and happy birthday, Ed.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.